Good morning, class. Good morning. Today, being the 21st of August, 2025, we'll be talking about CSS. I believe that we now understand what HTML is all about, and we now know our basic or fundamental HTML elements and parts. We know our inline elements and our log elements. Now, today we'll be talking about what? CSS. So that we can see how to use CSS to style our web pages. CSS to style our web pages. CSS stands for what? Cascading style sheets. Cascading style sheets. CSS. Cascading style sheets. Used in styling our web page. Alright. CSS. Why am I moving around? Someone bring that up to you, but I think you do it. I'll go back here. Let's engage in that. I'm going to see what you're not going to do. I think I'm wrong. So I said CSS is the language we use to style our HTML, web page, our documents, and elements. So it's better said it is a language used to style our HTML web page or our HTML documents. CSS describes how HTML elements should be displayed. CSS describes how HTML elements should be displayed. I said in the beginning, CSS is the language we use to style our HTML documents or HTML web pages. Then again, I said CSS describes how HTML elements should be displayed. Remember I talked about inline and so I talked about inline and block, right? Now inline element and what? Block element. And now I'm saying that CSS describes how an element should be what? Displayed. So which means you can convert a block element into an inline element. You can even make an inline element behave or display as if it's a block element. So since CSS is used for styling our web pages, you can use it to add colors. Since CSS is used to style web pages, we can use that to add our colors, fonts, shadows, all those you're curving. Maybe you have your picture, you see your picture, this has been curved like this, or it will be like cartoon. You know, all those designs. You get what I'm saying? So you can, all those things have been done with what? CSS. You can use it to change the shape of an image. Maybe with a square image. You can use CSS to change the shape from square to cycle, or from cycle to triangle, or any shape you want, any design you want. You can actually use CSS to achieve that. So, Even your menu. You know who designed our menu yesterday? Hmm? The menu we designed is just in a straight line. Right? Yes. And it doesn't look that beautiful, it's just like text. You can use CSS to style it to look more beautiful. But those things are elements. Right? So you can use the CSS to style your elements and make it look more beautiful. Alright. Every web browser or major web browsers processes CSS. Like I said, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are languages that run on the web browser. That's why they are called what? Client-side scripting, client-side languages, not scripting. Apart from JavaScript, which is a scripting language, HTML is a scripting language. HTML is a language used for structuring web pages. CSS is not a scripting language. CSS is a language used for styling HTML web pages. But JavaScript is a scripting language used to add dynamics or add and modify the behaviors or the appearance or how an element does what behave, mainly based on user input or how you want the things to behave, like your timers. If you want your page to be counting 1, 2, 3, or some of you can ask me, oh, we got our calendar. How am I going to make sure that every day the calendar, once you call your laptop, the date will change to the actual dates, right? You ask that. So that is where JavaScript comes into play. What JavaScript is a scripting language. HTML on its own cannot do that. It's just for structuring. Why is it just used for adding dates? Then the JavaScript is like adding life into the web page. When you build a simple calculator, when you bring your element, you bring one element, you open here, you bring another element, you open here, bring another element, you open here. When someone type 1 plus 1 equals your JavaScript can calculate it, solve it, and give you the answer. You can do that with JavaScript. It's a scripting language. What we get JavaScript to talk more about the next JavaScript. So CSS is used to define style for the web pages, including the design, layout, variations in display for different devices and screen sizes. Should I take it again? Write it down. I said CSS is used to define styles for your web pages. It is used to define what? Style. Because I can add style to your web what? Pages. Including the design, layout, and variations in display, and variations in display. Which is your right here. I said CSS is used to define styles. Remember, it's a styling script. It's a styling language. So CSS is used to define styles for your web pages, including the design. That's not about the styling now. The style already defined. These styles include what? These styles include the design, layout, and variations in display, and variation in what? Display for different devices and screen sizes. And variations in display for different devices and screen sizes. let me explain this. It's a very important aspect of CSS. And then that one I catch up here. The design is no problem, might be simple. The layout, no problem, might be simple. But variation in display for different devices and screen size, that is where you have a bit difficult. That is the media programming that you were talking about. Where you now use CSS. Like that this is what to design now. If you if you reduce your browser to a full size, you see that you need to start scrolling like this to be able to access some of your WhatsApp information. But normally, when you open it on the mobile phone, when you open it on your laptop normally, it will fit your screen size. It will appear as if everything looks fine. But that website design, when you open it on the mobile phone, instead of it to be in a straight line like this, if you want to read this and you start scrolling like this, maybe if you want to click on About Us or Register Now, you start scrolling like this to be able to get to where it is. But with CSS, you can arrange it like this. You click to it, it comes like this, very simple. It opens and it adapts to your phone screen size. You understand? It adapts. You can use CSS to define all the screen sizes. So whenever anybody opens your website, CSS will look at, okay, what is the size of this phone? Then it will now adjust the website to be able to suit into that particular device. Be it your small mobile phone, your tablet, your pads, or your laptop, or your desktop computers, or even your televisions. You understand? You use it to adjust to all the screen size. That is why it says variation in display for different words, screen sizes. Good. Let's continue. Yes.
CSS does that, then like what's the work of that meta name report in shell scalar on that?
Viewports. Viewports. Let me just. While viewports adjust the screen size with HTML, that's for HTML. It will not work as expected. You understand? While here it's an HTML tag to adjust the screen size, but it will not work as required. It will not actually give you what you want. Do you understand? It will not actually give you. Okay, that was supposed to look at the report. I think the viewport, although it's not, in fact, don't just it will actually give you what you want. When you reduce the size of your screen, there are some elements or maybe your content that now actually adjust your screen size, it does before. Do you understand? Because if you don't, it might, like an HTML complete language, those are some features on our lab. So even though in that report, it is required that you add it so that in case whereby this one is not there, this one will also consider it. But the real thing that will actually make the elements adapt is the way you describe your screen size in CSS in that way. Open audio as well, open on the meaning natural. That thing was what I'm saying, no, you will not be suffering looking for how to adjust it to size. You understand? So it will not actually give you what you want. Especially when you want to maybe shape the size, maybe you don't want your elements or the front of the elements to display from here to here. You want to adjust it a bit when it is on the mobile phone. Then change the display when it is on the tablet. Change the display when it's on maybe on the computer. That one is just fixed, but this one can make it dynamic depending on the device that's in that particular web page. You understand? That will make it that will make it, in fact, it will give you full control of how to adjust your web page to adapt to your screen size. You understand? So just using the viewport only is not enough. Or may not actually give you the exact design that you want. Maybe as you progress, I will get to understand the difference of this. And after the difference, how it works, their functions and what they look like. Let's focus on CSS. CSS. And like I said, HTML is not a complete language. When it was invented, it was not intended to, well, like in the beginning when we read who invented HTML, they said in the beginning it was just meant to share information within that particular association, right? But today, it has evolved into something else that if now me and you are here talking about HTML, you understand? You are welcome. So in the beginning, it was not meant for what you are using it to do now. But why you want to make advancement? Maybe you bring out an idea, someone sees that idea, wow, this idea, he advances the idea, even work with the the idea, you'll be like, I never knew this thing can even go to this extent. And not to start advancing, because there always more demand for customized designs. And that is what CSS came to do. CSS. When we are in HTML, we said HTML were tags and were this is your tag, right? I said tag, attribute, and what? Content. Tags, attributes, and what? Content. These are my tag, my blue tag. These are my attributes. This is my attribute tag. This is my tag. This is my attributes. This is my attribute name. This is my attribute what? Value. And this is my tag. Using what? Tag. Tag. It's my what? Content. The content I'm displaying to the user. Is this. So these are what makes up your words.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
What are you?
So another thing.
I'm the
What else are you going?
I'm
Solar.
Masoda.
No.
Now,
This is about the response. It's slow. Here, we have our tags. And our tags, we have our what? Attributes. And in our attributes, we have our what? We have inside our elements, we have our what? Content. Now, the same thing in CSS. But now in CSS, we don't have tags. Remember CSS, is used to do what? Style and element. Let's take it like that. CSS is used to do what? Style and element. Now, how will CSS know the element it is going to style? The good scenario is, how is CSS going to know what? The element to style. How will CSS know the element to do what? Style. And I said that for unique identification, use what? IDs. Use what? IDs. But before I come back to IDs, we look at the general part 5, the split view model. Let me take it to the compound way of. So for a CSS script, for a CSS language or a CSS code, to change the color of this element, the CSS I should first of all select the element I want to do what? Change the color of the content. Are you getting this? I want to select what? The element. I want to do what? I want to do what? I want to select. I want to do what? Select the element I want to style, right? So, the person that is going to select the element is called the person that is, if you are a person that is going to do the selection, you are called the what? No. Hold on. While I'm doing this, I want you to listen to your head. Now, as you don't know my name, and I'm asked to come here to select some people that will go and carry something. Who am I? Selector. You understand? Selector. The selector is the person that is going to select the people that are going to go and do the job. So in CSS, the selector is the particular the selector is what is going to select the particular element that you want to do what? Style. Now let's take this definition. Let's take this definition. A CSS rule. Now CSS syntax, not the syntax. We don't know how to say okay, CSS syntax. One is HTML what? Element. This is for CSS what? Syntax. SYNTAX. Your heading CSS syntax. CSS syntax. Another one is HTML elements. In JavaScript, they call the JavaScript scripts. These are the syntax. Run are the elements, the tags. What is one called tags? These are called what? Syntax in the CSS. A CSS rule consists of a CSS rule, rules and regulations. A CSS rule, RULE. A CSS rule consists of a selector and a declaration block. It consists of what? Selector and what? A declaration block. Declaration block. So CSS, just like our HTML, elements. Just in my HTML, are you with me? we have our tags and our what? Attributes. In CSS now, we have the selector and the declaration, the selector and the properties. Don't worry, as you progress, I'm not confused, you're not going to take it. You know as you are doing it now, one by one, before you need it, you grab it. You have the selector, which selects, pay attention, the selector does what? Selects the elements you want to do what? Style. And I said the rule, the CSS rule consists of what? Selector and what? Declaration. Braces, right? Braces. This is the selector, and this is the declaration block. Not tag, block. It's a block. You need to understand what a block is in programming. A block. Block. Block is block. Block is used for construction, right? Block is just the normal block they use in building the house. The block is what you use to set the building, right? Here now, the block now is used to build the element. You understand? This one is going to select the element you want to do what? Build. This is the block. Inside the block now, you put what you want to use to do what? Style the element. Where this one selects the what? Element that you're going to style with what you have built on the designs you make inside your block. Are we getting it? This is my selector. I have something like this. Selector and block. This is how it should be. You write your selector, you put the block. You write your selector, you put the block. Don't worry, we expand it small. Just like you have your what? Opening tag and your what? Attributes. Then you have your selector and your what? Block. Then inside the block, you now have the what? Properties. Remember when I was teaching this, I said these are the properties of this tag. These are the properties of this tag, right? Well, not as here, we don't use properties. We call it attributes. The attributes are the properties of an HTML opening tag. The attributes are what? The properties of an HTML opening tag. So that opening tag are all property. You know it's property now. If you're rich now, or if your properties depends how rich you are, isn't it? So these are the properties. So how the element will be displayed or behave, I think I mean by what? The properties, which are the what? The attributes. Because the attribute, are you seeing the ceremony? Because the attributes are the properties of the HTML element. In this case now, this is a selector which you use to select what? The element. I remember when we are doing our HTML, we have an attribute as what? Style, which we use to import CSS into it. We have adding CSS properties. A style as an attribute is part of the property of what? An element. Then we have our tags, right? Our codes. Then inside it now, we add another piece, a property, like an CSS property. We now add it inside that particular HTML codes, those open and closing codes. So now, which means we are adding more properties of CSS into HTML to make the into HTML element, to modify or make the HTML element look more beautiful, or to style the HTML element. Not if I'm communicating. Are you get what I'm saying? You there? Are you get what I'm saying? Are you sure? make sure you are listening very well. Because if you don't understand this very foundation, if you don't understand today's class, you might find it difficult to understand CSS. You understand? So I'm going to be breaking it down gradually. Doesn't matter how many things you focus. Look at that we have a good function, a good understanding of how CSS works with what HTML. Good. Now, that's what we do. So I said the CSS should consist of what? A selector and a what? Declaration block. So the blocks are what you are going to use to build the properties of what? HTML. You get it? It's just like for example, really a property. So to add more properties, HTML will be limited properties. In other words, limited what? Attributes. You understand? So we're limited properties. So now use CSS to add more properties to what? To the HTML. And just to add more designs. Because even when we're defining our attributes, we said it is used to modify the view or display or behavior of what? An element. Now, since this is the property that modifies the element, and we said also that HTML will limited what? Properties or limited attributes. You understand? So we need to add more attributes to actually give us the exact look or appearance or display that we want. So another language is now introduced to add more properties so to make HTML what? Rich. You understand? We can with limited attributes. That's why you cannot add certain things here. It will not work. That's why CSS was now what? Introduced. To be able to add more what? Attributes or more properties to HTML elements. Or add more attributes to HTML elements. You don't actually call it attributes. At least at this basic level, let's start by I want us to understand it first. Before now, from start, we go to advanced level. So here, when I was doing our style, something like this, right? Style equals to, let's say, text color, right? Right? Text color, red. This is the CSS property, right? This is the property name. This is the property what? Value. Just like this is your attribute name. This is your attribute what? Value. In other words, this can also be, if I use the word attributes, I'll say this is CSS what? Attribute. What is the attribute name? This is the attribute what? Value. But because another language, that is why it's called style, used to import CSS into what? HTML elements. Now, let's look at this again. This is my selector, and this is my block. I'm going to write this now into normal CSS. No longer what? Inline. This one is for inline. Let's look at how CSS works. Before I continue, let's use the definition. Let's use the definition. Now, right. The selector points to the HTML element you want to style. The selector points to the HTML element you want to do what? Style. Now, in the declaration block, in the declaration block now, the The declaration block contains one or more declarations. One or more declarations separated by semi what? Columns. Separated by semicolon. The declaration block. Declaration being block. The declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by what? Commas. We'll explain as we proceed. Sorry, by semicolons. By semicolons. The declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by what? Semicolons. We already said that before. Each declaration includes each declaration. I make a decree, let there be light, and there was light. So you are going to make a decree. You are going to make what? Declarations. And for you to make, after one declaration, if you want to make another declaration, you end the first one with what? Semicolon. That is the rule. I say, let there be light. Semicolon. I said, let there be water. So for each declaration, it must end with what? Semicolon. You have to make your declarations. And all your declarations will be inside your declaration block. So once you select, you open your selector, you open your block, which is that curled braces, right? Or it's like braces, right? You open that's your declaration block. Then inside the declaration block, you now make your what? Declarations. You can make as many declarations as you want. And for each declaration, it must end with what? Semicolon. So that selector has to start. The selector has to start. It doesn't have the time, you just it's an element name, the selector. Don't worry, you understand. In the next chapter, you understand. Let's get statistics level first. Are you following? Are you following the two of you? Separate yourselves. You go there. Come, let me see your face. Come this side. If I can appear, I just try to look class. You just come and try to my class. Are you following continuing? So, I think each declaration, right, includes a CF. Okay, the declaration block contains one or more declarations. The declaration block contains one or more declarations. Separated by what? Semicolon. Each declaration in CSS property, which means declaration. So which means those declarations are also the properties, can be called the what? Properties. So each declaration includes, each declaration includes a CSS property name and what? Value. You get that? Separated by a semicolon. Hold on. This is called what? Okay, I can do what? The first one I defined a declaration. And now I want to define what? Properties. Let's take the definition from the beginning. I want you to keep the difference between the colon and what? Semicolon. Semicolon ends a declaration. And this declaration we're talking about is all about property name and what? Values. Just like attribute name and attribute what? Values. So each attribute contains what? Attribute name and attribute what? And you assign the attribute value to the attribute name using what? Equals to. You assign attribute value to the attribute name using what? Equals to. So using that sense of stand up. So using that sense of attribute name, you assign the value using equals to. Yeah, since the column is not used to assign values. But here we just assume, or so that we can get it clear. We say it is used to assign what? Values to what? Properties. Or sorry, property what? Name. And I said attributes are the properties of what? Elements. But in the okay. Let's not take it too far, that's too confuse us anymore. But let's read this. Let's take our definition again. Start with the definition again. Now, I'm beginning afresh. I said the selector points to the HTML element you want to do what? Style. Now, again, I said the declaration block, already we said CSS were selector and what? Declaration block. CSS were again selector and declaration what? Block. And the selector is used to do what? The selector is used to do what?
Select the elements.
You know that. Selector is used to do what? You see? That one has to separate with the two of you. Yes, you did. Selector is used to do what? That you want to style. The two of you should stand up. Stand up, you are you. You're not paying attention. The two of you are not paying attention. These are the introductory class. And what is very important because whatever thing you're going to do in CSS, this is the foundation. You need to understand the foundation first. You need to understand this first. It's even more important that you understand this than what you are writing. You can still calculate it later. Pay attention. Pay attention. And still right. I said a CSS rule consists of a selector and a declaration block. The selector and the what? Block. Now, I said the selector points to the HTML element you want to do what? Style. The selector is going to point to the HTML element you want to do what? Style. Then inside the block, you now put your what? Declarations. Selector and declaration what? Block. Now, your selector is used to do what? Select the element. While inside your declaration block, you now put your what? Declarations. And each declaration will end with what? Semicolon. You understand this at this stage? Selector used to select the element you want to style. Then inside the declaration block, you can have as many declarations as you want. And to end every declaration, you must use what? Semicolon. Then, and I said, each declaration includes a CSS property name and property value. Property name and property value. So here now, one of the properties text. Text what? Color. And I said each declaration includes a CSS property what? Name and what? A value. And now the value is what? Let's say red. Separated by a what? What would I use to separate this? Column. You understand? You know, we're trying to say that column is used to assign value. So you can say that the columns can be the assigned, but even though that is not the language, you understand? Because to assign a value is supposed to that is what it is. Yeah? So since it's but somebody knows the code, you understand it and understand, you just understand the way it is. It's a structured language. So since the people that invented this is how we are assigning the value. This has, so we're going to do it like that. So here now, this is one declaration. This is what one. I just want a declaration now. I want my test score to be what? Red. I'll put my selector. P. P is what? Paragraph. I now put my block like this and like this. These are the declaration what? Block. This is my selector. Automatically I am selecting all the what? Paragraph. This is my selector. So which element am I selecting? Paragraph. So this is my selector. Now, these are my words. Declaration block. And these are my words. Declaration. So in CSS it's called what? Declaration. In the other one we call it what? Attributes. Are you getting? In CSS it's called what? Declaration. In HTML we call it what? Attributes. So this is my declaration, and I said every declaration will end with what? Semicolon. Now, and every declaration should have what? Even the declaration is what? Property. It's the property of the CSS. So every declaration should have a what? Property name, which is what? Text, color, and the property what? Value. Separated with what? Column. What's semicolon? Now we use semicolon to add value to the declaration property. The declaration property name. You want to try to change the language. Oh, you know, we're changing the new language, so everyone wants to take it to that language. Ask your question. Madam, when I have a video for HTML, I assume we now know what's HTML and HTML element, what it's all about. The attribute, we've done something, we've seen what's an attribute, how to assign values to attribute what? Name. Now, in this case, now we no longer call it attribute. We're using CSS to go and style what? Elements. Yeah? So now we have our selector. Not just the selector, it's just selecting the name of that element. Obono anchor can change styles. Here got about Obono UL can change style. Here got about UL. Obono OL can change style. Here got about OL. So any element Obono H1 can change style. Here got about H1. Obono H2 H2. So since you know your element names, the opening tag, the element tags, you use these to select the tag of the particular element you want to do what? Style. Because this is the word selector. That tells HTML, that tells CSS. Look, go CSS, go to that HTML page. About when you flow H1, make the color actually give me red. The other one you're doing it inline, inside the tag now. This one I want to do it outside the tag. Do you understand what I'm saying? Before we're using style equals to. That was why I introduced it that time. So that you have one knowledge of CSS then. Now, this is how to do CSS proper. Why this? Okay, let's continue. I'll still come to why this. Ask your question. Okay, that's not going to do. What you're confused, I know you're confused. I know where your confusion is coming from. I can decide. I can do it. So, you get it, You got it right? And that's what for the 1 hour.
Yeah.
So my selector here, let's use P as an example. So the one element dominant is 5. You select the element by writing the element to what? Attribute name. No, sorry, element name. Or the tag, yes?
Using NG because what if you have 4 paragraphs and you want to style new one?
Sit down. Follow the class gradually. Now let's happen to it. I just said why, and I said about why, and let's continue to understand the amount of why. And you're not asking me why. Okay. All right. Then I put it forward. I said this is your selector. And this is your block, declaration block. Declaration block, which is the block where you put your words, declaration. Now these are declarations. Just similar to your normal HTML attributes. Now in this case, call it the declaration or the properties. The declarations are also the what? The properties. So this is the property name, and this is the what? Property value. Separated with what? Semicolon. Or consigned with, sorry, separated with colon. And ends with what? Semicolon. Now let me add another property or another declaration. You have text color. We have text align, right? Text align center. No, you don't use quotes. That one is in HTML. Where you do like this. Align equals to center. In CSS, text align equals to, but this one is what? The column center. So if I don't put align equals to center, assuming this is my P, and I don't want to put this. If I come and write here P, and I put my opening tag, and I put this, automatically, anywhere it says P, as this, because it's selecting any P, symbol on off with P, or make the text being red, or make the text align being center. This is block form, and this is inline form. Inline that is inside the what HTML tag, meaning what tag. So if I want to make my declarations like this, and if I want to use inline, which means inside my HTML element, I will do what? Style equals to, because it's an HTML attribute, style equals to text align. Good morning. Text align center, and each declaration must end with what? Semicolon. And then look at that declaration. Text color red, and to end with what? And that's semicolon. This is what we have been doing all this while. Inline. Okay, I'm now going to put because it's inside what? HTML element, it's an attribute. And this attribute is used to do what? Import CSS. So instead of writing P, doing this tag, I can do it inline like this. Whereas this has to do it what? In CSS. A moment. Are we getting it? And I'll just once more. Don't practicalize it, let's see how it works. So, instead of coming inside my P, I'm using an attribute, style, to import CSS. We can't do CSS on its own. We've not done the opening tag and the closing tag. I'll still come to those ones. Let's understand this first. Now, this is my P. In CSS. Any CSS, go to my HTML page. Anywhere you see P, do what? Make the text what? Red. Align the text to what? Center. Before, if you don't want to do it like this, we did it inline before. Now this is inline pattern. We use CSS, we use style to import CSS. We use the style attribute. Use the style attribute to import CSS directly into our element without defining our blocks. So come on, there by this one, I can use inline, which we have been using all this while. To do it like this. Now, the difference between this and this. Now, how many say this particular image style equals to this? You told me P. Only this particular P on the affect, right? And other elements can only affect, right? But if you use this one, if you have 20 keys, 20 paragraphs, the whole 20 paragraph will be what? Align center and red. Because you said P, you just specify the what? P that you want. Is it the first P, the second P, or the third P? That is where ID, that attribute ID will now come into play. So let's say, no, this is the particular P I want you to do what? Put red. Or this is the particular P I want you to align to what? Center. That is where ID will come into play. We'll still introduce ID, how to attach it. And we'll now see how the ID, we have mentioned ID in our elements before. And name. And which other attribute I mentioned before? And class. And class. When you talk of class, where you want it to affect like just 4 or any element that is inside this class, you should do what? Make it sure. Now we'll get that, we'll explain more.
Thank you.
Thank you. But you need to do something. I'm not going to be able to skip out. It's a very important information. You didn't even know the news. Yes, you do something, that means. We're going to skip out. We're going to go missing. Yeah, this is a foundation class, so you're just supposed to step out. Now, let me repeat it again. You understand this, right? When you put this inside your P element here, what will happen?
use an inline element used for HTML.
If I use it inside the HTML element, look at the tab, look at the attributes. Style. What is style attribute?
The CSS used to add.
It's not a CSS, it's an HTML attribute. Used to import CSS inline. It's an attribute of HTML. And this is the attribute HTML used to what? Import what? CSS. Inline. Because it's the same line. What I mean is inline with your inside the line. It's not just one line. But this one is in block format. That's what I call the definition of block. But this one is inside the line. It's inside here. Key style equals to. At least we understand this part of what we're doing here. Okay? Okay, let's HTML. And it was working. Now, I now said that the difference between the inline and this block now, that I just designed, is that once you do this one now inside this P, only the content of this P will be aligned towards center. The other element to it, the other P that you wrote on the under it will be aligned to center. Only this particular one, right? But if I do it in this block format, all the P's in that web page, all of them in that web page will be what? Red color, that is the content. And all of them will align their text to what? Center. What if I want a particular P, not all the P's? Like I said, this one is selecting P. That is where ID comes into what? Play. You understand? Now, this P, you select all the P's because I'm talking about this P. So if you have 20 P's in your web page, all the 20 P's, you obey this declaration. In this case, I will use declaration. But assuming I want to point to a particular P, particular paragraph, I now have to introduce what? ID. So you know, the one on the particular paragraph I want you to change is the one that the ID. Remember I said IDs are unique to each word element. IDs are unique to each word element. Meaning that two elements cannot have the same word ID. In some cases, two elements can have the same name, like our radio buses. That's why we have name and ID. Name and what? ID. We also have class, whereby I can say anybody inside this class should wear red clothes. That one is class. I'm no longer talking about one particular person. So once you are inside that class, you must wear what? Red clothes. But if I want only this person to wear red clothes, I'll use what? ID. I'll use his ID to identify him. But if it's inside this class, I can still add of inside one class. Say everybody in this class wear red, but you wear blue. Well, even though he's in this class, but the fact that I pointed him directly that you should wear blue. He alone will do what? Wear blue. So that is where class and ID now come into what? So if a particular class as declared in your HTML and in your CSS, anyone that's inside that class, you have the same one. We obey the declarations of what? The CSS block. Are we understanding it? Ask your question.
My question is, I'm going to HTML introduce this paragraph as an element.
Yes.
And you use tag. The HTML goes tag. So if I'm to write this out, why don't I still use that tag?
We are using tag because it's in HTML. You understand? Now, all the elements in HTML, all the elements in HTML, CSS will handle you. So once you write P, oh my God, P. That is called selector. No, you don't need another one. This is how to write. This is how to declare a selector. Look what I need P. Oh my God, P. You see now S. Oh my God, S. So the whole element needed in HTML from A to Z. CSS will handle you. Your own is just to tell the CSS. This one, the element I'm talking about is what? P, which is the what? Selector. You used to do what? Select the what? Element in your HTML page. Any other question? Go to the floor on the bed. It's me on the bed. Grandma's in good. No, this one is for your HTML attributes values. In this is here CSS, here not HTML. Then we can enable to realize this HTML attribute. B is equals to any in CSS, we don't have big thing in CSS. We have the elements in CSS. When I tell you Ojo, when I tell you Ojo, also wine shit, I'm not familiar. Now wine I read that was that this it's just like telling me why did I put here? Oh yeah, Joe. Why wait? About now HTML attributes is equals to use your quote. This is how HTML is doing what? Structured. Remember these things are structured languages. We take more HTML, we take HTML. Now CSS, it's what HTML. So in CSS, you don't use these things. Remember you have what? A declaration. And each declaration, then what give me? Property name and what? Property value. Separated with what? A colon. And end with what? Semicolon. This is the definition of this. This is my property name. This is my property value. Now here we say assign this to this using what? Equals, because equals is used for assigning. But here we don't say assign. But if I'm to use that term, I will say you use colon to assign the value to this. There is nothing like quote again here. So quote is in HTML. We're not talking about what? CSS. So this is wrong. In CSS, you don't do like this. You just write like this. For each declaration, you assign the value. End there. And that declaration. Background color. Green. End there. And that declaration. End there. So this is one declaration, two declarations. You can have as many declarations as you want. Ask.
When you're explaining about how to use CSS, you made mention of ID, using it combined, linking it with class. For instance, now in your HTML or your code, you want this particular one to be, let us say, you want it to be in the red color. Your paragraph, or your paragraph to be in the red color. Then your background color. For instance, your heading, let us take for instance your heading. You want it to be in another color, like blue color.
Alright. Super. Now, we're talking about you can have multiple selected or multiple blocks. Understand this at this level first. I will be looking after this explanation, I'll start fresh again. After fresh, let me answer your question. But on a quick one, if this one should end here, this is one HTML rule. This one will go here. I can add another one. So this one now inside my HTML element, all the key will obey this, right? Now, inside my heading, I will come down here again. H1. I will do my declarations. Then I have my div, right? I'll come here, div, my declarations. Are you following? Then I will have which other element? OU, right? Or LI. LI. My declarations. So with this, if it comes into my HTML page, every one of this B, all this declaration will apply. Ebe ọbụla ọ fụ LI, all this declaration will do what? Apply. Ebe ọbụla ọ fụ H1, all this declaration will what? Apply. Ebe ọbụla ọ fụ DIV, all this declaration will do what? Apply. Now, since now H1, all this declaration will apply. Came back at H2, will this declaration apply? Eh?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Why? Eh? I said this is H1. And since this is my selector, now since I have H1 and I have my block here and I have my declaration, I now ask this H1, all this declaration will apply to all my H1, right? I now say, what of my H2 and H3 will this declaration apply?
No.
Why? They're not the same element, they're different elements. You understand? Because H1 will tag into H, H2 will be H. So H2 is just its own element of its own. This is block. This one is what? Inline. So which means I can even make more than 20 declarations inline. That one is your own business. But what if I want the whole P in my element, in my web page to be centered? Make inline. So if I have 20 P's, which means I have to do it to for the whole 20 paragraphs, right? If you want to change the color of all the text inside, maybe I have 20 paragraphs in my web page, and I want to change all the 20 paragraphs, all the text should be aligned center. If I use inline, which means I have to type it 20 times. Inside each one, I'm typing it inside each one up to 20 times. And someone say, no, there's a mistake. No. I don't want it to be centered again. Let it be left aligned. What will I do? I'll start fresh again, editing all of the 20 the 20 paragraphs, start changing their style to send left, all of them up to 20. But if I have this, if I have my CSS, I don't need to suffer all those things. I just come here and adjust my declaration once, and all the P's will obey. You understand? That's one of the benefits. Come and benefit you full style equals to style, each paragraph, style, each paragraph, each style. We style at 20. The way you shut down sentence, you not right. If you don't want to see right, up to 20, up to 100. Even though we can every this time, you jump off. You understand? And the time will consume you. So you just use CSS. That's what is important now. Once I make my declaration here, select all my peer values. Just obey. Now, also listing. During my HTML, I made when I was talking about attributes in HTML, I gave an example. And I said, assuming that father practical now, whereas that anybody walking into this school must wear blue jacket. That is his own declaration, right? Everybody coming in here must wear blue jacket. That's his own declaration, right? So which means anybody coming inside the school must wear what? Blue jacket. It is a rule, it is a must. It is a what? Rule. You understand? So if you're not wearing, stand up. Please, stand up. The thing is you're not taking life. You want to ask a question? You want to sit down? You want to go out? Hurry up, please. If you know you're paying attention, sit down. No, you, stand up, you. If you know you're paying attention, sit down. Pay attention and understand this. Please not time to sleep. I really want something in my class. Let's say you're sleeping in my class. Today, you're just sleeping. You don't laugh at. You don't sleep at night. You want to talk. is the foundational class. This is the foundational class. Any question? Feel free, ask questions.
Paragraph. You may up to 15 paragraphs. And so even I didn't hear P1, P2, P3. So it's in a job perfect guy. 15 na grade. Many 5 na K.
John. Ask your question again.
I said, for instance, in a paragraph, you have up to 20 paragraphs.
Not in a paragraph, in a web page.
In a web page, sorry. You have up to 20 paragraphs.
In a web page, we have up to 20 paragraphs.
And you know that you don't usually assign P1 or P2 to.
Because all paragraph attributes are P. That's like P1, P2. P is P, right?
Yes. So, for instance, now, in that 20, you want 15 to be shining red, and the other 5 to be shining green color. What do you do?
Now, he said, what if in the web page you have one particular element, or one particular element appeared like 20 times? Now, using P as an example. Now, in the web page, you have up to 20 P's, 20 paragraphs, and maybe there are some selected 15. You want to be, the text should be what? Red. Then the other 5, the text should be what? Blue. What will you do? Right? Very good. I made mention of class. You group them in class. That is that attribute class equals to, you have to put the class name that you declare here. I'll show you how to put classes, how to tell this thing. Go to P, and that P must belong to this class. Or anything that belongs to this class, make it what? Red. That is where class will come in. But if I want to target a particular element, I'll use what? ID. I'll show you how to declare IDs here and bring it here. You know, when you use your style attribute, which you have to do it one by one on each part. One will feature culture, general camera, feature culture blue, general camera, blue, feature culture pink, general camera, pink. But in this case now, I can use ID. Maybe that one that's some catch over red. If I don't use inline, I can use ID to point to it. Or I can group them to class. Never wear classes. Then I'll declare. Now I'll show you how it works. Now declare classes. So anyone that this class equals to, maybe let's say dot whatever, let's say dot R. So any this thing that I have R here. So a class will be what? Red or and what? Center. I will expand. I will still expand. Let's take it one after the other. By then, the question will answer for you. The most important thing is that most important thing now is that I want you to understand that this one is an HTML attribute used to import CSS inline, whereas this is CSS block what? Declarations, where you can now use your selector to select the element you want to style. So in my P element, if I want to style directly into my P element, one particular element, instead of if I don't want to start doing all these declarations, I just open my style, put all my declarations, enter it, semicolon. Even if I want, I can put 1 million declarations here. That's the only business. Only this particular paragraph is okay. If I come to that paragraph, assuming you have 1,000 declarations here, you have another big paragraph, 1,000 declarations, you have another 1,000 declarations, and you want to change each one, you want to change all of them, which means you have 10,000 declarations to work on. 5 weeks, you never finish it, right? But once you do it here, you say you only have only 1,000 declarations to modify. Just modify this one, and every other element that identifies with that particular selector will do what? Will obey and change its contents or its design. I believe you understand this at this level. Any questions? Ask your questions. So move forward. Yeah, oh yes. Yeah, nice. Yeah? It's called story phrases. That is the name of that. So this is I am not reading this and this. English. That is English. I'm now sorry. How English? I might feel like I like basic Igbo language. So much to basic because I wear basic Igbo language, so you can borrow. So when I say it's your basics, you want to be your I am that. But you wear more basics. I don't have English can be more complete. That is always a contribution of what I all my can all can so you can borrow languages. Look at it. Are you confused? You cannot. Listen, if you are confused, feel free to tell me you are confused. I don't mind something afresh. But you just understand this foundation, everything will be the same thing. God's for you. Ugochukwu, are you sleeping? You want to, what do you understand? Come and explain what is on the board for us. Come out. The class here. SS2. SS2. Come out. You're looking to tell us something. Let us do about Roman. Very soon you take charge of your life. You know what happens there. Explain that to you. You know what you understand. Don't be shy. You're not going to mistake. It's part of learning. Then try a little of that. Teach us. Talk to the class, not me. Tell the class, I want to talk to you. I'll talk to you from there. Now talk to me. I can hear you. I have to say, let me know here. I find it difficult on you. You want to No, let me know. The way I say so come. Oh, my class, I will tell you. Eh? Come on now, let me know. In the words of people who normally. In the words of people who. Okay, that's what my class did. Zanon now, come on, I'm doing. My class did it. Eh? Last night. Be you serious, my friend? Be serious. Answer me. Which one is inline element? Inline element. You know what I said? The style and element. What is style? This one is style is what? Style is what? Style is what? Talk now, no. Style is what? Style. Attribute. Attribute of what? No. Style is an attribute used to import, is an attribute of HTML. How HTML is an attribute? Say start the attribute. This is the wrong declarations. This is the word declarations. While HTML is the word attributes. All the same thing, but I change the language now. So I have to get one. So even as CSS, you call it what? Declaration. Even a HTML is why I give attributes. So explain further. I will write what? Write which thing? Braces. Then inside the braces I'll do what? So that text color, the column red, ends with what? Semicolon. So that line is called what? From that text, from that T to the semicolon is called what? This is called what? It's called what? It's called what? View. It's called what? It's called what? It's called what? Poverty. It's called what? Property. It's called what? 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 You said declaration, sit down. You said property, stand up. Well, declarations and the property, sit down. It's called what? Declaration. Then this, if this is declaration, then this is called what? That is from here to here. It's called what? 5. Value. You said value, it's not the value. Which one? This is value, same value, same value. Which one are you saying? You said value and ask you value, you said no. So what is it? Guess me like that. It's not. It's called what? It's called what? It's called what? Madam, it's called what? Yeah, it's called what? That's it. Okay, you said it's called division block, right? This is called what? I'm asking you. Attributes. Come on, don't worry. You know this class is called what? Madam, it's called what? You. It's called what? You, madam. I'm talking to you. Please speak. Iniyoku. Go ahead, get a B. Yeah, look at me. Being cut. Declaration. You see? H I got look at me. Hey, go on. Yeah, again. Selector. This is the selector. This is the declaration block. And this is what? The declaration. Or the property. This is the property name. And declaration name. You know, all of them are the declaration now. But when you make a declaration, in programming, it's not called statement. Make a statement. Here we're making what? In sense we're making what? Declaration. In JavaScript, we make what? Statements. This and notice. I'm not worried about notice. In CSS, I call the what? Declaration. The scripting language is to call it what? Statements. You make a statement. Make a declaration. Let all the keys align to what? Center. So I just declared all my keys to do what? Align to what? All the text inside my key should do what? Align to what? Center. Let all the keys, let their color be what? Red. It's a declaration. Let there be light, and there was light. Are you flowing? But are you clear now? And I'm talking, you are doing something else. You tell me, I don't remember. I want to sit here. These are new things. Good laptop. You have a comment to make about him?
Advising him.
Okay, advice. Can you know about that? I don't know, because I've seen this not following me. But what I mean, I'm so, what did I last night? I did zone and zone, guy, and I'm following. I lost see him. Oh, what can I say to you? I know he's a special, my special students. What can I say to you? Oh, you know, never come away. Let's join us. So, feel. If there's no one about the other, oh, what's the case? You now see somebody hiding behind the pillar. You will think he's in the class, he's not in the class. Whatever, let me see you. You can put the other see what can you do next to you. You are teaching this class. Yes, what do you feel? Because you can't go out there, you can't defend what you are learning or what you did not. You teach you how to defend it, to know what you've learned. When somebody talk, you know, what are you telling me? What are you again? You know, you do because you know what you are saying. Not this one element, that's what you say element of saying back. You see, the one you say, you say acting because one back. You know, you understand? I'm not saying, we should talk position, you know, you actually in my class. So pay attention. You're going to have one chapter, one. Because soon now, I want to have everyone who knows a partner. Because we don't have a partner, what do you know? Even if you go and say for a partner, I'm going to come in after 1 year. You'll be sure. In our partner now. You want to all right. I said this is the word selector used in selecting what the element you want to do what style, and we do that by making what declarations. So here, what I'm saying here is that let all the paragraph in my HTML web page do what? All their text should be what? Red. All the text inside my paragraph should align to what? Center. And all the text should be what? Align to center. Because we just made the what? Declaration. Am I clear? How long? Then what you have to come up with? The way this boy hurry up, sit down. Now stand up and answer. What is this? This is CSS. So what do you call this in CSS? Yeah? What do you call this in CSS now? Two. Is what? Is this thing? No. Yeah? You went on an introduction. So I'm not asking you now, what about doing this? I know the reason why I'm doing all these things, because I can't just step, I go forward. Even when I'm asking you, I'm still building it and instilling it inside you. That's why you should pay attention. I'm not just asking him, I'm asking everybody. Now, answer. What is this? I said in CSS rules, we have what and what. And what? If not for anything, when I began this class, I demonstrated something. What if I come to this class and I was asked to select 2 students? Who am I? At least that was the first statement I made, so that you capture it. And I said the selector is used to select what? The element you want to do what? Style. And you style the element using what? Declarations. In HTML, you do that with what? Attributes. In HTML, you do it with what? Attributes. In CSS, if it's confusing, tell me. Is it confusing? Sam. You're tired.